Illinois rental laws govern everything related to rent, as well as the rights and responsibilities of both landlords and tenants. Understanding these laws can be extremely helpful in ensuring a solid landlord-tenant relationship and avoiding costly litigation in the future. In this video, we'll give you an overview of what the state law says about lease agreements, required disclosures, security deposits, and eviction. eForms, the largest online database of fillable legal forms. Check out the link below to access a fillable lease agreement template. Let's first go over the basics. What is a lease agreement? A lease agreement is a rental contract between a landlord and a tenant. Depending on the type of agreement, whether it's a month-to-month lease, a standard lease agreement, or rent-to-own, both the landlord and tenant are bound to the specific terms regarding the length of the lease, termination, and more. Because a lease agreement is legally binding once it's signed, breaking the contract can result in hefty fines or even legal action. Next, let's look at required disclosures. In Illinois, the landlord must make a total of 6 disclosures about the property. These disclosures address the following: carbon monoxide detectors. The landlord is legally required to provide a carbon monoxide detector within 15 feet of the tenant's bed. Information regarding the detector must be included in the lease. Smoke detectors. Similarly, the landlord must provide smoke detectors throughout the property and include this information in the lease agreement. Radon gas. While the landlord is not required to test for radon, they must make a disclosure to the tenant if they do find out that radon exists on the premises. Lead-based paint. This one is a federal requirement. If the property was built on or before 1978, the landlord must provide a lead-based paint disclosure to the tenant. Concessions granted. If any type of concession was granted as part of the lease, such as a rent discount, warranty, or another type of adjustment, it must be mentioned in the lease agreement. Failure on behalf of the landlord to include this information is considered a misdemeanor in Illinois. Shared meter. If the tenant is required to pay a portion of the master utility, the landlord must share the formula used to calculate the tenant's portion. Now, let's look at security deposit laws. Illinois does not have a maximum cap on the security deposit, meaning the landlord may ask for as much as they want from the tenant. However, when it comes to returning the security deposit, state law requires that landlords send the deposit back to the tenant within 30 days from the move-out date. If a deduction has been made from the deposit, the landlord must provide a list explaining the deductions within 30 days and release the remaining deposit amount to the tenant within the following 15 days. If the landlord owns more than 25 rental units, they are legally required to pay interest to the tenant for the security deposit. The interest rate is determined on the date of the deposit and must be equal to or greater than the interest rate of the state's largest commercial bank at that time. Finally, let's cover Illinois' eviction laws. In Illinois, a landlord may evict a tenant under the following requirements. Non-payment of rent. If the tenant is late on rent, the landlord can issue a 5-day notice to pay or quit. Non-compliance. If the tenant breaks any portion of the lease other than late rent, the landlord may give the tenant a 10-day notice to comply or quit. Unlawful activity. If the tenant is engaged in unlawful activity such as drug use or using an illegal firearm, the landlord can issue a 5-day notice to quit. Termination. If the landlord wants to terminate a month-to-month lease for reasons other than non-payment of rent or non-compliance, they must provide 30 days notice to the tenant. Want to learn more about Illinois rental laws? Visit the link in the description below for a comprehensive breakdown on all things related to lease agreements, evictions, and more.